To the crowd, a loner is a puzzle they didn't ask for and can't solve. Your silence is a mirror that reflects their own noise, and for many, that reflection is unbearable. They don't interrogate you because they want to know who you are. They do it to justify who they've become. The first type is the status auditor. This person views life as a series of checked boxes. They grill you on your career, your car, and your connections. When they see you aren't playing the same game, they feel a desperate need to find out why you've opted out of the rat race. Then comes the pity merchant. They see your solitude and assume it's a symptom of a tragedy. They ask intrusive questions about your happiness because they can't fathom that a person can be whole without a pack. They aren't trying to help you. They are trying to fix their own fear of being alone. Next is the tribal enforcer. This is the person who believes that togetherness is a moral obligation. They interrogate your lack of participation in group events as if it were a crime. To them, your independence is a leak in the boat that they feel compelled to plug. Type 4 is the project manager. This person loves to fix people. They ask about your future plans just so they can offer unsolicited advice. They want to turn your quiet life into a development project because they are too terrified to look at the wreckage of their own personal lives. The fifth type is the gossip miner. They don't care about your choices, they care about the why behind them so they can trade it for social currency. They interrogate you to find a nerve or a trauma they can whisper about later. Your privacy is their primary obstacle. Then we have the insecure mirror. This person has followed every social rule and is miserable because of it. When they see you living by your own rules, it triggers a crisis. They interrogate you, hoping to find a flaw in your logic that proves they were right to conform. Type 7 is the normalcy gatekeeper. They believe there is only one way to exist, and anything else is unhealthy. They use clinical language to pathologize your peace. They aren't interested in your truth. They are interested in relabeling your autonomy as a condition. Finally, there is the bored spectator. They interrogate you simply because you are the most interesting thing in the room. They use your life as a conversational stimulant to escape their own dullness. They want to consume your mystery to pass the time. The status auditor is perhaps the most common interrogator in a capitalist society. They operate on the dark psychology of comparison. Every question they ask, "What do you do for a living?" or "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" is a probe to find your position on the social ladder. When they realize you aren't even on the ladder, it causes a system error in their brain. They have sacrificed their health, their time, and their passions to climb a mountain that you were simply walking around. Their interrogation is a desperate attempt to find a price for your peace. If they can't find a way to value you based on your productivity, they have to confront the possibility that their own grind is a hollow lie. They fear your lack of ambition because it suggests that ambition might be a choice, not a requirement. By refusing to engage in their audit, you are effectively devaluing their entire world. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to support more deep dives into the psychology of the loner. You aren't lazy, you are selective. You have realized that success is a personal definition, not a public consensus. The pity merchant is a more insidious type because they hide their aggression behind concern. They use soft interrogation to find a void in your life that they can fill with their advice. Questions like, "Don't you get lonely?" or "Don't you want someone to share your life with?" are not questions at all. They are projections. They're terrified of the silence of their own company, so they assume you must be suffering in yours. When you answer with a calm, unbothered no, you are shattering their moral superiority. They need you to be broken so they can feel whole by comparison. The loner's immunity to pity is a dark psychological shield. By refusing to play the victim, you deny them the savior role they desperately crave. You are showing them that solitude is a power, not a problem. This flips the script. Suddenly, they're the ones who look needy for external validation, while you remain the sovereign of your own internal world. The tribal enforcer views your independence as a threat to the collective. In their world, loyalty is the highest virtue, and loyalty means showing up when the tribe calls. When you refuse to explain why you skipped the office party or the family reunion, the enforcer sees it as an act of treason. They use interrogation to shame you back into the pack. They ask, "What's more important than your family?" Or, "Don't you care about the team?" They are trying to trigger an ancient fear of exile. But for the loner, exile is the goal. You have realized that a tribe that requires you to sacrifice your peace is just a cult of convenience. By not justifying your absence, you are asserting that yourself is the only tribe you need to be loyal to. This creates a psychological friction that makes the enforcer look like a bully. You aren't abandoning the group, you are simply outgrowing the need for a pack to tell you who you are. The gossip miner is a social parasite who feeds on the details of other people's lives. They are experts at masking their interrogation as intimacy. They ask deep personal questions about your past or your family secrets to build a file on you. In the world of dark psychology, this information is ammunition. The moment you give them a piece of your story, they trade it for status in another group. The loner's informational embargo is the only defense against this type. When you provide surface-level answers and refuse to deep dive into your private life, the miner becomes frustrated. They will call you guarded or suspicious, but what they really mean is unprofitable. They can't use you to buy their way into the inner circle. Your silence is a bank vault they can't crack. You have realized that vulnerability is a gift, not a social duty, and you aren't handing out keys to anyone who just happens to be standing in the room. The insecure mirror is the most tragic of the interrogators. This person has spent their whole life coloring within the lines. They got the degree, the marriage, the mortgage, and the acceptable hobbies because they were told it would lead to happiness. When they see you standing outside those lines, unbothered and at peace, it calls their entire life's investment into question. Their interrogation is an inquest. They ask, "How can you live like that?" Or, "Aren't you afraid of the future?" What they are really asking is, "Why did I suffer for rules that you are breaking for free?" If you have a good reason, they can dismiss you as an exception. If you have no reason, then their entire worldview is at risk of collapsing. They need you to be wrong so they can continue to be right. The loner's refusal to explain is the final blow. By not defending your life, you're proving that it doesn't need a defense. You are living evidence that the social contract is optional, and for the mirror, that is a terrifying truth to face. The normalcy gatekeeper is a type that weaponizes psychology and health to maintain social control. They aren't just curious, they are diagnostic. When they interrogate your choices, your lack of a partner, your quiet weekends, or your refusal to hustle, they use phrases like, "That's not healthy," or "Humans are social animals, you know." They try to pathologize your peace as depression or avoidant behavior. This is a dark psychological tactic called moral labeling. By branding your autonomy as a malfunction, they are trying to strip you of your agency. They want you to believe that you are broken, so you will look to the normal crowd for repair. The unbothered loner sees through this immediately. You understand that normalcy is just a statistical average, not a moral standard. You have realized that many social animals are just herd animals who are terrified of the predator of self-reflection. By refusing to justify your health to a gatekeeper, you are asserting that you are the only one who can define your well-being. You are the one who knows that solitude is the cure, not the disease. You aren't avoiding life, you are engaging with it on a level that the gatekeeper can't reach. They fear your internal calibration because it proves that a person can be sane in a world that has gone socially insane. You are the black sheep who found the better grass, and the gatekeeper is just trying to bark you back into the dirt. The bored spectator is an interrogator who views your life as a form of entertainment. They are people who have zero internal world and therefore need constant external stimulus to avoid boredom. They interrogate you about your choices because you are an enigma, something different from the dull scripts they see every day. They ask, "What do you actually do all day?" Or, "What's the weirdest thing about being alone?" As if you were an exhibit in a museum. They aren't looking for a connection, they are looking for a story to tell at dinner. If you provide them with details, you are becoming a content provider for their empty lives. The loner's refusal to perform for the spectator is a strike against the spectacle culture. You refuse to be interesting for the sake of their amusement. When you give short, boring answers, you are starving the spectator. You are forcing them to go back to their own dullness. This is often called being a killjoy, but it is actually integrity. You are refusing to commodify your existence for someone else's short attention span. You have realized that your life is a sacred poem, not a late-night talk show. By maintaining your boring exterior, you protect the vibrant interior that the spectator is not equipped to understand. You are the gray man in a world of neon lights, and your invisibility is your incorruptibility. The project manager interrogator is driven by a compulsion for control. They see your unconventional choices as inefficiencies that need to be optimized. They ask, "Have you thought about?" followed by a solution to a problem you don't have. They want to onboard you into a better version of yourself, which is really just a version of you that makes them feel more comfortable. This is dark psychology disguised as support. By helping you, they are dominating you. They are asserting that their vision for your life is superior to your own reality. The loner dismantles the project manager by refusing the help. When you say, "I'm content with how things are," you are firing them from a job they weren't hired for. This creates a crisis of identity for them. If they can't fix you, they have to look at their own unfixed lives. They fear your satisfaction because satisfaction is the death of management. If everyone were unbothered, the project managers of the world would be obsolete. You are the unfixable entity who proves that peace is a state of being, not a result of planning. Your immunity to advice is the ultimate boundary that keeps your sovereignty intact. You are the one who has realized that good intentions are often just bad boundaries with a smile. There is a shadow interrogator called the reluctant loner. This person is alone, but they hate it. They have been exiled by the group and they are bitter. When they see you choosing solitude and loving it, they interrogate you out of a desperate need for a blueprint. They ask, "How do you do it?" Or, "Doesn't it hurt when people ignore you?" They are looking for a technique to turn off their pain. While this feels like empathy, it is actually a form of emotional theft. They want to download your resilience without doing the internal work of self-acceptance. The loner's response to the reluctant loner is honesty without softness. You don't give them a shortcut because there isn't one. You tell them that solitude isn't a trick, it's a transformation. This honesty is terrifying to the reluctant loner because it means they can't blame their misery on the group. They have to own it. They fear your lack of sympathy because they want to co-ruminate in the pain of being left out. But you aren't left out, you have left. By refusing to join their pity party, you are forcing them to face the void. You are the master of the silence who shows them that the door is unlocked from the inside, but they have to be brave enough to turn the handle themselves. The interrogation of life choices is a test of the loner's gravity. Society is a whirlpool that tries to pull everything into its center. The interrogators are the currents that try to erode your solid ground. Every why they ask is a pickaxe hitting your foundation. If you explain, you are yielding to the current. You are allowing the water of public opinion to flow into your interior. But the unbothered loner has a high density of self. You are too heavy to be pulled. Your silence is your gravity. By not responding to the interrogation, you are making the interrogator feel the weight of their own intrusiveness. You are the still point in a turning world. This non-reactive gravity is what people mean when they say a loner is intimidating. You aren't doing anything to them, you are just staying in one place. They fear you because they are driftwood. They go wherever the social current takes them. When they see someone who is rooted, they realize how fragile their own lives are. You are the mountain that doesn't explain its height to the climbers. You are the dark psychological constant in a world of variables, and that makes you untouchable. In the final analysis, the 8 types of interrogators are just messengers from a dying world. They represent a system of control that relies on shame, comparison, and the desperate need to belong to a collective that no longer exists in any healthy form. By the time you can categorize them and see the machinery of their insecurity, they have already lost their power over you. You are no longer the subject of their investigation, you have become the observer of their pathology. You have found the center of your own labyrinth and realized that the loud, demanding questions they threw at you were just echoes on the walls of a maze you have already solved. This realization is the moment of total psychological liberation, where the social weight of others finally drops to zero. You have reached the state of total informational sovereignty, a fortress where your internal data is yours alone. You don't owe the world an explanation for your peace, a story for their entertainment, or a diagnostic report for their comfort. You are the author of your unwritten future, and these interrogators are just characters in a minor, redundant chapter that you have already finished reading and closed forever. Their attempts to pull you back into the narrative of normalcy are nothing more than the static of a frequency you no longer tune into. You see their frantic need for answers as a symptom of their own lack of grounding, a side effect of living a life that requires constant external validation. Don't look at them with anger or resentment. Those are just forms of attachment that keep you tied to their level. Instead, look at them with the clinical detachment of a loner who has won the war for their own mind. Stay in your stillness and guard your mystery with a quiet, unshakable pride. You are the only person who gets to see the full picture of your soul, and that is a privilege you have earned through the discipline of solitude. Remember that the only way they can solve you is if you give them the pieces. If you keep your truth private and your boundaries solid, you remain the master of the game. You are the ghost in the machine who has finally learned to speak the language of silence, and in that silence, you are finally, truly untouchable. Your life is not a public utility or a shared resource for the bored and the curious. It is a private sanctuary, a space where you have carefully curated every thought and every value without the contamination of the crowd. When you stand before these 8 types of people, you are standing as a representative of a different way of being, one that values depth over visibility and peace over popularity. Their confusion is the highest compliment they can pay you. It means you have successfully moved beyond the reach of their control mechanisms. You are a sovereign entity, a light that burns steadily without needing the oil of social approval. This is the end of their interrogation and the beginning of your absolute freedom. The next time someone leans in to audit your life, don't feel the need to fill the silence. Look at them not as a judge you have to please, but as a student of a world that is still learning how to be alone. Your mystery is your greatest asset. It is the wall that keeps your peace intact and your soul your own. You have survived the interrogation, and you have come out the other side with something they will never have, the ability to be whole without an audience. Stay silent, stay sovereign, and let the world wonder.